I stood there in the break room, staring at a lopsided sheet cake that said, "Good luck, Beth," in smudged blue icing, one slice already cut like someone couldn't wait. Next to it was a bowl of cold pasta salad sweating under plastic wrap. This was my send-off. After 5 years of pulling 10-hour shifts, managing chaos, covering other people's mistakes, and running the damn garage smoother than Darren ever could, this was it. My name's Beth. I'm 36. I live in Columbus, Ohio. Darren cleared his throat, fake grinning like this was a real celebration. 5 years ago, Beth joined us as a scared little rabbit, he said, chuckling like he was charming. Didn't know the difference between a torque wrench and a tire gauge. People laughed. I smiled. I felt my jaw tighten. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? Darren kept going, loud and slow like we were in church. But hey, look at her now. Ran this place like a machine. She turned into a real pit boss. He paused to glance around. All thanks to the training and support she got here, of course. That's when I felt it. The snap. That clean break in your chest when you stop hoping people will see you clearly. When the truth stops mattering because the lie has already won. And we'll miss her, he said, holding up a plastic cup of soda. We made her into what she is today. I nodded like I was touched, smiled like I was grateful. Everyone clapped. A few people gave me side hugs and half-hearted compliments. No one mentioned severance. No one mentioned the last-minute meeting where HR told me business needs changed and that today would be my last day. I packed my stuff into a cardboard box while the others went back to their bays. Nameplate, extra pens, a stress ball shaped like a tire. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't trash the place or cry in the bathroom. I just walked out, quiet, controlled. 15 minutes later, I was sitting at Charlie's Pit Stop, a dive bar down the street with sticky tables and strong whiskey. I didn't call anyone, didn't text. I pulled out my old personal USB drive. Nothing fancy, just black plastic and scratched. I plugged it into my laptop and opened the folder labeled Shop Expense Logs. Inside were 2 years of notes, invoices, screenshots, flagged payments, vendor names that didn't match, duplicate orders, weird charges. It was all there. They thought I was just walking out. What I was really doing was walking in. The whiskey burned going down, but I barely tasted it. I was deep in the folder labeled Parts Discrepancies, scrolling through itemized logs and flagged receipts. I'd started it 18 months ago, back when I noticed an oil invoice billed to the North Bay twice in the same week. One delivered, one never arrived. No one could explain it. Darren brushed it off. Just a system hiccup, he'd said. But the vendor address was different on the second one. Now it all looked louder. I opened unauthorized orders, and there it was. $5,400 for engine diagnostic software, ordered on the 7th by Darren, and again on the 21st by Mike, his so-called consultant. Same product code, different PO numbers, both marked urgent use. I zoomed in. Mike used the company card. Darren used a corporate American Express from the same account I'd processed claims for. My name had cleared those expenses, my login. I knew how the billing pipeline worked. Those charges got flagged only if someone complained. No one did, because nobody looked. Next tab, mystery vendors. The tire balancer stuck out first. $900 listed under Fleet Tools, supposedly shipped to our main shop. But the delivery address? A 2-bedroom house in Galloway. I copied it, pulled it up. Zillow photos showed a detached garage full of fishing gear. Mike's place. I clicked into another line item. A pressure washer for shop use. Vendor name, RTG Supplies LLC. I ran a WHOIS lookup. The website bounced. I checked the registry address. UPS store in Boise, Idaho. No phone number, no contact email. They weren't even trying to be careful. I started matching card numbers across purchases. Darren's card was tied to at least 9 separate orders marked safety upgrades. But I knew for a fact we hadn't added a single safety upgrade since 2019. Still had the same beat-up first aid kits and one broken eye wash station that everyone ignored. Every receipt I clicked made me colder. Not angry, not even shocked anymore, just focused. I opened a fresh Excel sheet and started laying it all out. 1 tab per vendor, order dates, item codes, prices, matching invoice numbers when they reused them, conflicting project IDs when they faked them. I didn't editorialize, no red text, No notes in the margins. Just clean, time-stamped evidence that said everything on its own. The software orders went under duplicated high-dollar purchases. The tire balancer and pressure washer went into residential shipments. I linked the vendor info to a separate tab called Non-Verified Entities. Every LLC with no legit registration got tagged. Every address that didn't trace to a warehouse got marked. By the time my glass was empty, I had 27 flagged transactions, 10 vendors, 4 cards, all traceable, all wrong. I saved the file under a new name. Discrepancies, non-inventory. Simple. Quiet, no fireworks. Just proof. My hands shook a little when I closed the laptop. Not from fear, from adrenaline. I wasn't done yet. But this was the map. I left a 10 on the table and walked out. The night air hit hard, but it cleared my head. Tomorrow, I'd make contact. Tonight, I had what I needed. I walked straight to my car and sat there in the dark with the laptop still warm on my thighs. Streetlights hit the windshield just enough for me to see my reflection. I looked tired, sharp, exactly how I needed to look. I remembered what Mr. Leonard told me once, back when he visited our branch during the last audit. I'd stayed late to prep the binder and walked it out to his car. He didn't even glance up, just said, "I don't care about feelings, show me risk." So I opened a new Gmail. Fresh account, no name attached. Subject line, for internal review. Only I attached the file, no message, just sent it. 35 minutes later, I got a reply. Received. May I contact you if needed? I typed, of course, then shut the laptop and left it alone. Next morning, I was at home folding laundry when my phone buzzed. It was Nate, a friend from the warehouse who used to shoot the shit with me during inventory week. He texted, "All big purchases frozen till further notice. Something's up." I stared at that message a long second before replying. Copy that. I didn't ask questions. I didn't feed the rumor mill. I just waited. 2 days later, Jen from scheduling hit me up out of nowhere. I hadn't heard from her since my goodbye lunch. She sent, "Contractor renewals all on hold." No explanation. "Darren's dodging meetings." I replied, "Anything change in the vendor queue?" She responded, "Haven't seen a new order come through since Monday. Weird quiet." That was enough for me to know the gears had started turning. Quiet always came before pressure. In that company, silence wasn't peace. It was compression. Right before the snap. Still, I kept my head down. No gloating texts. No anonymous tips. I didn't need to stir the pot. The pot was already boiling. They just hadn't looked inside yet. Later that night, I logged back into the Gmail. Nothing new from Leonard, no follow-up, no thank you, which told me more than words would have. It meant he was doing what he always did, cutting off the air supply before the fire even started. That spreadsheet had weight. I knew that. But the quiet meant it landed exactly where it was supposed to. Not in HR, not with some limp middle manager. It went straight into the hands of someone who didn't blink when the numbers went sideways. And now people inside were noticing the change. Purchase orders stalled. Vendor approvals paused. The spending train they'd been joyriding had hit brakes hard enough to rattle. I didn't smile, I didn't toast. I just sat back and watched the slow spread of disruption like smoke under a door. It hadn't caught fire yet, but I could smell it starting. They thought I walked out with a box of desk junk. What I really walked out with was the match. I was halfway through a bagel the next morning when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Just said, "You free?" Then the second message hit right after. "It's Travis." From IT. I wiped my hands and typed back. "What's going on?" He didn't waste time. "POS systems on fire, crashing constantly. Gearbridge tech's a ghost." I paused. That name again. Darren had pitched Gearbridge like it was gold. Streamlined workflow, cloud native, all the buzzwords. He made us dump the old system overnight to future-proof operations. "You dig?" I asked. "Deep." Then he sent me a photo. Screenshot from an internal chat thread. Darren defending the system in black and white. My call, fully vetted. Underneath it, another name jumped out. Angela from Ops. Her reply was sharp. "Why's the billing address your cousin's?" No response from Darren, just dead silence below the message. Travis added, "Whole thing's running on duct tape. Your file made rounds." I grinned into my coffee. It wasn't about revenge, it was about confirmation. That spreadsheet? That was the grenade, and they were just now hearing it tick. "Who's seen it?" I asked. "Everyone that matters." Then he dropped another screen. This one was from a shared drive audit log. Leonard's name was on it. File opened. Accessed, tagged. Internal notes flagged to legal. You stirred the whole hive, Travis said. Good. I leaned back in my chair, phone warm in my hand. The chain had started pulling itself. I didn't need to nudge anymore. Darren was cornered, and not by me. By the systems he'd broken and the people now forced to clean it up. What about the data recovery vendor Darren used? I asked. Also fake. They used a Gmail. No domain. Traced it. Guy registered the invoice from a public library IP classic, I replied. Travis texted, they're trying to justify it all like experimental procurement, but nobody's buying it. Then, Leonard circling. Questions getting sharper. I knew what that meant. Leonard never kicked the door down. He worked like a silent audit. Steady cuts, nothing wasted. Darren was already bleeding. He just hadn't figured out where from yet. Let me know if anything leaks, I said. Will do. And Beth? Yeah? People are talking. Most of them, they're rooting for you. That hit a weird nerve. Not pride, not validation. Just a sharp reminder I hadn't disappeared. I just shifted position, from the engine bay to the driver's seat. I spent the rest of that day logged out, quiet, making backups. Not just of the file, but of every receipt, every chat, every weird charge I'd ever seen. Organized it clean, labeled by vendor type, department code, and authorization chain. Let them scramble, let them patch leaks and pretend it was just accounting errors. The mess was bigger than they wanted to admit. It always had been. They just thought no one was watching. They were wrong. I kept the notifications on, didn't interact, didn't scroll too far. Just watched. Darren went dark. No group chats, no email blasts, no team rally posts on the intranet, which he usually spammed anytime morale dipped. Nothing. For a guy who loved the sound of his own updates, the silence was loud. The company Facebook page, though, whole different story. Why was my appointment canceled without notice? Anyone answering phones over there? System keeps crashing when I try to book a diagnostic. The replies were all canned. We're experiencing technical issues. We appreciate your patience. But anyone who worked there, or used to, knew what that actually meant. The software Darren forced on them was eating itself alive. I refreshed the careers page just out of habit. 2 new listings: compliance lead, urgent budget auditor, immediate hire. I let out a short laugh. Immediate. That meant damage control, not planning. They were building fire exits after the smoke was already coming through the vents. My phone buzzed. Yo, it's Kyle from North Branch. Still breathing? I sent back. Barely. They're calling in outside auditors. Real ones. Heard your name came up. I stared at that for a second, then just typed, good luck. Didn't answer the second ping. Didn't open his third. This wasn't about being dragged back in. I wasn't some fixer for hire. I wasn't their Band-Aid. It wasn't revenge either. That would have been petty, loud, emotional. This was cleaner than that. This was structure correcting itself, math balancing out. All I'd done was remove the cushion that kept their mistakes from showing. Now the bruises were blooming. I switched tabs to the system outage status page. Still flagged red. All units affected. In the Slack archive someone had leaked to Reddit, screenshots I recognized by font alone, one line stood out in a panicked thread. Why weren't these vendors vetted? No answer. Just an awkward timestamp and the next message jumping straight to, legal needs to see every invoice from Q1. Even from my living room, it was easy to picture the panic. The locked conference rooms, the HR director ducking calls, the quiet meetings behind closed doors where people figured out how close they stood to the blast. And Darren, he was silent. No spin, no charm. No frantic attempt to bury the thread or play hero. His feed hadn't updated in 3 days, not even a repost of his usual leadership quotes. He was done. He just hadn't said it yet. I didn't gloat. I didn't toast. I just kept watching the walls buckle under the pressure they built themselves. They thought I was the risk. Turned out, I was the alarm. The next email from Leonard landed just after noon. Subject: Bay Ridge Supplies, LLC body. Can you confirm connection between Darren and Bay Ridge Supplies, LLC? No greeting, no sign-off. Just a scalpel slicing to the bone. I didn't even have to dig. I already had it saved. Pulled up a photo from 2 summers ago. Company cookout at Mike's place. Not the official one. This was the consultants and real decision-makers party Darren always joked about. They'd strung a banner across the fence in the background. Bay Ridge Poker Night, open bar. Right underneath it, Darren and Mike grinning like idiots, both shirtless, both sweaty, holding up solo cups like frat boys. Sent it back. No caption. Didn't need one. His silence was confirmation enough. He wasn't asking to speculate. He was closing a loop. An hour later, I got a text from Angie, one of the parts coordinators I used to share a break schedule with. Darren's keycard got deactivated. It says he's locked out of email. I replied, that fast? Faster than I expected. He left early. Didn't even take his laptop. Then another message came through, this time from an old dispatcher named Reed, who I hadn't heard from in months. Internal memo just leaked. Full vendor contract review ordered. No new parts orders allowed without regional approval. Which memo? I asked. He dropped a screenshot. Header, urgent supply chain, pause bullet points, temporary freeze on all vendor transactions, all existing contracts under review. No new orders unless cleared by compliance flag discrepancies to controller's office immediately. This was no internal optimization. This was a teardown. They weren't patching the holes. They were pulling out the drywall. Darren didn't even get the dignity of a company-wide farewell. One day, he was posting LinkedIn fluff about scaling operations. And the next, he was erased. Not reassigned. Not transitioned. Just gone. I didn't need to ask how it happened. I knew Leonard's style. You didn't hear the hammer. You just noticed someone stopped showing up. I sat on the couch, phone in one hand, watching updates roll in like controlled detonations. Some of the junior managers started quietly purging their own purchase history, trying to scrub their approval trails. But it was too late. Everything past 2020 was already under forensic audit. Leonard's team didn't miss. And the dumbest part? Bay Ridge wasn't even hidden. They filed taxes, they paid dues. They were a legit LLC on paper, sure, but only if you ignored the ownership link back to Mike's sister. Public record. One click. All it took. They'd gotten cocky. Thought nobody would trace small charges. Thought they'd stay under the radar forever if they just called everything a tool upgrade or shop necessity. But a fake vendor can't explain matching handwriting on sign forms. Can't explain why a pressure washer for winter safety showed up in July at a lake house. They'd left fingerprints on everything. All I'd done was dust them. I got up, poured another coffee, and watched the feed spin. People in my old group chat weren't even pretending to be loyal. They were saving themselves. A few started posting inspirational quotes about accountability, like they'd found Jesus in a budget spreadsheet. Let him panic. Let him pivot. The system they loved? It was corroded from the inside, and now it was collapsing under its own weight. By the next morning, word was flying faster than the company could contain it. Someone leaked that the CEO had called an emergency meeting. Not a Zoom, in person, mandatory. Regional managers, senior operations, legal. Everyone with decision power. I wasn't invited. I didn't need to be. Darren walked in like he still had a card to play. Tried to frame the whole mess as operational complexity. Said all purchases were approved internally. Claimed the vendor pipeline was optimized for speed, not bureaucracy. Then Leonard stood up and opened the spreadsheet. He didn't do speeches, just numbers. $72,000 in misused funds. $31,000 in fleet expenses, delivered to personal addresses. $13,000 to unverified vendor accounts linked to shell companies. He had receipts for every line, invoices, shipping data, emails, signatures, internal routing trails with Darren's name in every single one. No excuses, no spin, just exposure. Someone in the room, a board member, according to what I heard, leaned back and said, "So she didn't break anything. She was keeping it from breaking." That part stuck. Not because I needed the credit, but because they finally saw it. The silence I kept, the long hours, the flagged orders, the questions I was told not to ask, all of it had kept the walls from collapsing while they congratulated themselves. Now those same walls were caving in with Darren still standing inside. He was fired by the end of the day. No email, no statement, no company-wide thank you or bloated farewell lunch. Just gone. HR locked his records. IT wiped his access. Someone boxed his stuff and left it in the mailroom with no label. They didn't even offer him a reference. The funny part? The same people who backed him for years, who let him walk all over finance, who laughed when he called me overly detailed, were the first to turn. Jen texted me later that night. Leadership's pretending they didn't know. Full reset mode. Let them, I sent back. She wrote, If you'd been in the room, you would have seen it. They were pissed, but no one denied a thing. I didn't need to be there, I replied. Exactly, she said, because now they get it. I looked at the message for a while, then closed my phone and poured a drink. It wasn't justice. It wasn't payback. It was correction. Sharp, overdue, and permanent. No confetti. No applause. But for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't bracing for something to fall apart. 2 days later, I got an email with a subject line that made me snort. Exploring future collaboration, from the CEO himself. The same guy who shook my hand like a politician and said, "Tough decisions, but we appreciate everything you did." The day they kicked me out with no severance and a sheet cake. Now he was writing, "We'd like to speak about opportunities going forward. Your insight could guide us." I didn't open the body. Didn't need to. I dragged the email into a folder I'd labeled the week before. Nah. No reply, no explanation. Just done. That was their closure, not mine. And they didn't get to choose when I walked back in. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed again. This time from a contact I'd met at a regional conference last year, operations manager for a small chain downstate. "We're rethinking systems. Heard what happened at your old shop. Can we bring you in for a review?" I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. I already had everything prepped. The LLC was live, worksite systems, registered, insured, legit. Logo simple, gray text, no fluff. Contract template clean and tight. Scope, deliverables, fees. All spelled out. No room for nonsense. 2 other shops were already on deck. One in Dayton, one in Lexington. Word was spreading, quietly but fast. Nobody wanted to be the next operation to get gutted by internal fraud. They were looking for structure, for control, for someone who knew where systems bled from the inside. That was me now. Not a coordinator, not a backup brain for lazy managers, not the person they gave a chance to. I built the audits from scratch. I ran the checks. I carried 5 years of red flags in my head while pretending I didn't see the house burning. Now I didn't need permission. I had clients. I logged into the worksite dashboard and checked my intake forms. One unread, one already submitted, one asking if I offered training packages. I smiled just a little, not smug, just ready. They thought pushing me out was cleaning house. But I wasn't the mess. I was finalizing a service agreement for the Lexington shop when my phone rang. Out-of-state number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. "Beth, this is Carl. I used to manage accounts over at TriPoint Distribution. We dealt mostly with Darren back in the day." I didn't say anything yet. He cleared his throat. "So, he's gone, right? We figured something had blown up over there." "Yeah," I said. "He's out." He didn't waste time. "We want a clean slate. That mess set us back 2 quarters. You available for a consult?" "Depends what you're looking for," I said. "We need someone who's not going to bullshit us. Vendor review, purchase approval structure, internal controls, the works." I clicked open my calendar. "I can give you a discovery call Thursday." "Perfect," he said. "Been a long time coming." As soon as I hung up, another message came in. This one through LinkedIn. Name looked familiar. Paul something. Then I remembered. He was one of the silent backers during our original tech upgrade 2 years ago. Showed up to one meeting, said nothing, wrote checks. Now he was sending, "What would you build if no one got in your way?" No preamble, no fluff, just that. I didn't type a response yet. I leaned back, stared at it, let the weight of that question settle, because I already knew the answer. I'd been sketching it on paper for months, even when I was still working under Darren. Streamlined platforms, flag triggers, real accountability without a single motivational poster on the wall. I smiled, just slightly. Not because I was daydreaming, because it was already in motion. That silence coming from my old company, that wasn't peace, that was fear. They weren't ignoring me. They were afraid to say my name out loud, afraid of what else might surface if they poked too hard at the audit trail. I'd stopped checking their posts a while ago. The chaos was theirs now. I'd handed it back to them. Meanwhile, I had files to build, tools to finish, a roadmap already halfway done, and no one standing in the way. They'd built a culture around scrambling and covering. I was building a system that didn't need excuses. A week later, I was 30,000 feet up, watching the clouds stretch thin under the wing. Flight to Kansas City. Small chain of service shops in the Midwest. 3 locations, steady volume, decent reputation. They'd called after seeing how my old company imploded. Their email had been blunt. "We don't want that happening here. Can you help?" I said yes. Now I sat by the window with a black coffee cooling in my hand, carry-on tucked under the seat. Inside it was my pitch deck. No flashy transitions, no vague buzzwords. Just line items, clean workflows, sample audits, vendor checks. Every slide had a purpose, not here to prove anything. I was past that. I'd built systems under a roof full of liars and made them work longer than they deserved. This time, I wasn't patching leaks. I was laying new foundation. The guy in the aisle seat tried to make small talk earlier, asked if I was heading home or heading out. Out, I told him. New client. He nodded and didn't push. I liked that. Silence was better than fake interest. I took another sip of coffee and looked down at the fields rolling underneath. Didn't feel proud, didn't feel vindicated. Just ready. They didn't build me. Not Darren, not corporate. Not that half-assed break room party. They used what I built and slapped their name on it, and when they lost it, they realized it was never theirs to begin with. I was the blueprint. Now I built for real, not for cake, not for claps, not for some title that disappears when business needs change. I built for companies that wanted facts over charm, structure over noise. That's how it ends. No applause, no party. Just clean systems, tight margins, and zero fraud. Turns out that's what they needed all along.